I believe that we in the Special Prosecutor's Office made the right decision to re-indict him. We made the right decision to take it to trial, and we got a verdict that is obviously a resounding success for us.
Dan Webb, the special prosecutor, declaring victory in the case of Jussie Smollett. He was the actor who said that he was the victim of a hate crime in Chicago, Illinois. He said that people tied a noose around his neck, that it was a homophobic, a bigoted, a racist attack. It really captivated the country 2 years ago. He is now guilty on 5 of 6 counts for making that up and lying to police. Dan Webb, the special prosecutor, saying he will be punished for what he did to this city. It transfixed both the city of Chicago and the country as a whole in 2019 when Jussie Smollett said a couple of men dressed up as President Trump supporters ended up attacking him. We're going to keep monitoring what Dan Webb has to say. He's the special prosecutor. Welcome to continuing coverage of the Jussie Smollett verdict here on NewsNation. I'm Leland Vittert in Chicago. We want to bring in our panel. Karen Conte, defense lawyer and litigator here in Chicago. Also, Phillip Turner, former prosecutor who worked under Dan Webb, now a criminal defense attorney, also in Chicago. Karen, stand by for 1 second. Start with you, Phillip. I remember when you began talking about this case, you said Dan Webb's one of the best attorneys in the country. And just from watching a couple of minutes of that press conference, you can tell why.
He is. Dan is a great, great person, first of all. And he's a tremendous, tremendous attorney. I had the privilege of serving as an assistant United States attorney under Dan. And I was a young lawyer. I learned a lot about being a good lawyer, good person, and trying cases. He's the best. He is the absolute best. And when Smollett climbed on the stand, I told people, Dan Webb is going to remove his heart without anesthesia.
You say that, and he did by all accounts. And you could see in Dan Webb during this a certain amount of anger, not only for what Jussie Smollett did in perpetuating this hoax and turning the city of Chicago upside down and pitting people against each other, but a certain amount of anger by Dan Webb for the fact that Smollett got up on the stand for hours and perpetuated the lie. Karen, how much does the fact that the jury effectively found that Smollett was lying to them for hours and hours play into whether or not he will get jail time for these felonies?
Well, the judge can certainly take into account that he lied, but the jury's verdict confirms that they thought he did. And so for purposes of sentencing, the judge has to take that as he did not tell the truth. In federal court, there's an actual rule about it, but the judge can take it into consideration. Listen, I mean, he has a right to remain silent, and Dan Webb said in his statement that maybe he should have just remained silent. But again, you know, he needed to take the stand. He had to take the stand. He had the 2 brothers who testified that it was a hoax. He had to tell the jury who he was. He had to tell them his side of the story. Judge didn't buy it, and the judge can certainly take that into account and should.
Yeah, it seems at some level, Phillip, the judge and the jury found that he was an average actor and such a bad liar in terms of how he perpetuated this from the very beginning. You think about it, you call the police and say there's been a hate crime perpetuated against me, and you're standing in your kitchen with a noose around your neck. We have the body cam video from the police of him standing there with a noose around his neck. He told the police that he had taken the noose off and then put it back on. On Good Morning America, he said, no, I never took the noose off. Then he wouldn't give his DNA to the police. Then he wouldn't give his phone to the police. At some level, when this all fell apart, would Smollett have been better off just admitting to Kim Foxx, the state's attorney, I did the wrong thing?
Well, yes, that would have been the smart thing. And of course, he's an actor and they've got public relations firms, and they could have spun it that, you know, he was temporarily out of his mind or something like that, or as he said, smoking weed or using drugs or something like that, and said, you know, it was an aberration in my behavior. I apologize. And he might have been able to just, you know, get away without some bad publicity for a couple of months, you know, and stay with a low profile and then reemerge like a lot of people do and not have this happen to him. But this preposterous story was ridiculous. He has hurt a lot of people, as Dan said. He's hurt people, the true victims of discrimination and hate crimes. He has hurt them. Now what's going to happen whenever those people tell their story and there's anything that's perceived as a discrepancy or problem, 2 words are going to be said. Jussie Smollett. And he's hurt a lot of people. Now, as I understand it, the judge did not take him into custody. And among criminal defense lawyers, generally in state court, that's a sign that the judge may not give him jail time. But if there was ever a case that deserves jail time, this guy deserves jail time.
You know, Phil, one of the things that's interesting about having you on is how you're a defense attorney, but your sense of justice seems to come first to your sense of standing up for defendants. Karen, it's an interesting point that Phillip just brought up about there's a lot of victims here. Future victims of hate crimes, of real hate crimes are the victims here. The city of Chicago is a victim here because people all over the country watched as we all thought that there had been this hate crime perpetuated in the city of Chicago. There were politicians who came out and said this was a modern day lynching, on and on and on. One thing that was interesting that Dan brought up, the prosecutor, he said there were 26 police officers who worked a total of 3,000 hours until they realized that this was a crime that had been perpetuated, except it was a crime by Jussie Smollett, not by people wearing MAGA hats. We understand the defense attorneys are now speaking. We'll go to that.
Easy. Como dijo Celia Cruz, la vida es un carnaval. For the Spanish people in the room, you'll know what that means. My clients, Ola and Bola Osundairo, could not be more thrilled and pleased with the result today. We honor and respect the jury's outcome, but understand that there is a lot of healing that needs to happen. First and foremost, there is one unsung hero in all of this, and my clients really want to make sure she gets the credit she deserves, and that is retired Judge Sheila O'Brien. Without the judge, we don't have the Office of the Special Prosecutor. We don't have people being held accountable. We don't have the verdict that we have today. So wherever you are...
All right, so just so you understand who the players are here in this, this is the attorney for the two brothers who Jussie Smollett paid to fake beat him up. He was given, the two brothers were testified, they were given $3,500 to beat up, in a way, Jussie Smollett and then disappear. Big part of the evidence in this case was not only the brothers' testimony, but security camera footage of them doing a dry run, the check and payment itself, the text messages and Instagram messages between the two of them. Karen, getting back to this idea of how long it took police officers who actually ended up tracking the Nigerian brothers down, and then the Nigerian brothers, the Osundero brothers, flipped. Their lawyer was just said, we can't be happier. The question would be, how much does the judge take into account all of the additional victims and the police time and the cost to the city because of Jussie Smollett's story?
Certainly, he can do that. He can do that because he wants to set a precedent that you don't report fake crimes. And we've got, we're heading toward, what, 900 murders here in Chicago this year? And so the police have other things to do with their time. So I think the judge can, it's perfectly fine for him to do that, to use a sentence to set an example. But remember, the horrific history of this case, that charges were dropped, and then there was a special prosecutor that spent all the time. That really wasn't Jussie's fault. That was the fault of our state's attorney. And our state's attorney admitted that she did not handle this correctly. And Dan Webb actually found that she had done some things that were improper and reported her to the licensing commission. So a lot of the hoopla of this started with Jussie Smollett, of course, but it was extended by virtue of one of our public officials.
Phil, that brings up an interesting point, because Kim Foxx is such a, you could say she's a lightning rod in Chicago, but she's sort of universally unpopular, I think, except with the possible exception of the criminals who she doesn't prosecute. Is there any
possibility? Wait a minute, Leland, she got elected after this report came out. She got
okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I guess there's a certain group of people, I should say, who have some problems with her. Phillip, I guess the question about Kim Foxx going forward is, now that Smollett's convicted, is there a chance that there is additional problems for her because so clearly she bungled this case?
Well, you know, I've certainly said there should be a federal grand jury investigation of the entire thing, because obviously there were contacts by lawyers calling her, or people calling her, and Then the whole way the case was dismissed with this sneaking into court early in the morning, thinking that nobody would find it. This needs to be completely aired. And I think the only way it can be is with a federal grand jury investigation. And then we see where that goes. I think it's a very significant matter because it goes to the heart of our judicial system here. And it certainly should be completely aired out to find out what Ms. Fox did, what they were doing, get all the emails, text messages, find out all the people who were contacting her, what was going on, check all bank accounts, all kinds of things to see what was going on here behind the scenes in this matter.
What she knew and when she knew it. We're looking at pictures that were put into evidence of Jussie Smollett. I guess this is a screenshot from his phone where he's showing allegedly some of the wounds he received during the attack. Karen, he got up on the stand. He testified for hours about this. It was a very convoluted defense that he made about how he actually was attacked. There was no hoax, on and on. The brothers were upset with me because one of them was homophobic, even though I engaged in a relationship with them, on and on. The jury clearly didn't buy it. Is there any chance there's perjury charges?
I don't think so. I mean, I think this case is going to be over from a criminal standpoint with what happened. Clearly, the judge could make a determination that he made material false statements, and a prosecutor could go after him for that. Generally, that doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen as a practical matter. And I don't know about the rest of the city, but we kind of would like the rest of this to go away. There's a civil case pending, and there's other things going on. But I think we'd like to never hear the two words Jussie Smollett ever again.
Dare to dream, because the media will bring them up often. But it's a good point. And I think, Phillip, you pointed out there's a lot of people who probably would be better off if we didn't hear that. You made an interesting point that because he was not taken into custody, even though he's now a convicted felon, that it is less likely he will get jail time. One of our producers who's in the courtroom sent us a note that he is due back in court in person for sentencing. How is that going to look, since there's not a victim to make an impact statement? Does Dan Webb get up and make a case for why he thinks Smollett should or should not spend time in jail?
Absolutely. As the prosecutor, he will argue for an appropriate sentence in this case. As I said, I discussed it with a lot of defense lawyers, and generally in state court, when someone's found guilty, they're taken into custody. Also, I would add that in federal court, generally, whenever a defendant testifies, he or she is found guilty, there's automatically a perjury enhancement. Now, I've argued against that, but that is how it happens in federal court. It's automatic, and your sentence is enhanced basically for testifying and the jury finding you guilty. So this is a case, though, certainly, as I say, on the facts and the damage that he's done to so many people, not just the money and time of the police department, but the damage he did to not only the city of Chicago, but to the country. It's a case where jail time is warranted. Something has to happen, as opposed to him walking away and being able to continue this farce, this story of saying, oh, the jury was wrong and all these sorts of things. He needs to go to jail.
Boy, I hope you're never my judge. That's all I have to say. We're going to try to get some live pictures up of the courthouse here so we can watch what's going on. Obviously, the prosecution's already talked. The lawyer for the Osundero brothers, those are the two Nigerian brothers who turned state's evidence and testified against Smollett, has already talked. So far, we don't see any protesters or anything like that. The question's going to be, does the defense come out and speak? And Karen, I guess this goes to sort of a larger question. What's the game plan for Smollett now? Do they come out and say, gee, we were sorry? Or do they come out and say, no, the jury got it wrong, we're going to double down and appeal? And how does that play towards sentencing and then the rest of Smollett's career?
I think they should say nothing. A defense lawyer should never come out and say the jury got it wrong. We should have confidence in our jury system. These people gave up a lot of time and they did a lot of hard work on this case. And they were obviously very careful because they parsed all these different counts and found 5 guilty and 1 not guilty. So they did their job, and I commend them. I mean, you always have to commend the jury. They're doing they're lay people who come and they essentially volunteer their time. So to to disparage the jury is the wrong thing to do. You also can't say he now is sorry for what he did, because he's got an appeal and he's going to be hopeful that his appeal is successful and he can't admit guilt. So he'd probably be better not saying anything. And you know what, Leland? From the very beginning, he probably would have been better if he had just kept his mouth shut.
Well, he probably would have been better if he just kept his mouth shut and not called 911 and said I was the victim of a hate crime. That would have been step number one in keeping your mouth shut, and then it went downhill from there. I want to bring in Dan.
A Subway sandwich and gone home.
Yeah, ate a Subway sandwich at 2 o'clock in the morning. We think we can bring in Dan O'Donnell, who's a radio talk show. No, we can't bring in Dan O'Donnell. His signal keeps breaking up. Phillip, as we kind of wrap this up, I'm wondering, in terms of an apology from Smollett, is there a way for him at sentencing to come out and say, I'm sorry and I'll move on? And it sort of ties into this. The Good Morning America interview that Smollett did more than 2 years ago now, just about 2 years ago. It's been 665 days since Good Morning America covered the Smollett case when everything fell apart. This is video of him walking into court, so we're not going to be able to take live pictures. But do you think the media covers this and covers the culmination of this trial in the way they did the alleged hate crime?
I don't think so, because the narrative was great for the media, particular parts of the media. They loved that, and now it's sort of fizzled out and it's gone haywire. And I want to say one more thing as a defense lawyer. Mr. Smollett alleged a crime occurred. Now, as a defense lawyer, I represented people who get accused of crimes, and some of them have not done what they're accused of. And this is just an example of how easy it is to make some allegation. Just think, as I was discussing with some other lawyers, if when the police were doing this, looking around, they had found on Lower Wacker there some fella who happened to be white wearing a mega hat. You know what would have probably happened. It would not have been good. So this is what happens. People make allegations like this, and they shouldn't be able to make them and get away with it and possibly cause innocent people to go to jail.
Yeah, so, almost like a Richard Jewell moment that would have been if they found somebody with a red hat on. Live pictures right now of the courthouse. So this is where the hallway where we understand the defense team and conceivably Jussie Smollett will walk out. So we want to keep our eye on that. Meantime, we want to harken back to what we said right after this attack when Jussie Smollett sat down with Good Morning America. Take a listen.
I'm pissed off.
What is it that has you so angry? Is it the attackers?
It's the attackers, but it's also the attacks. It's like, at first it was a thing of like, listen, if I tell the truth, then that's it, because it's the truth. Mm-hmm. Then it became a thing of like, oh, how can you doubt that? Like, how do you not believe that? It's the truth.
At some level, Karen, it kind of restores your faith in the police for whatever problems the Chicago Police Department have, that they actually didn't believe it and that they actually followed the evidence.
Well, yeah, our police department is a good police department. They're right now, they're going through a horrible time, as you can imagine, that a lot of police departments are going through because of the disrespect that they get. But they worked very hard on this case when he was accusing someone else, and they likewise worked hard to get to the bottom of it, and they got it right. And I think that caused a rift. Another problem is the rift between the police department and the state's attorney's office, because here you have these police people working overnight, working overtime, and then the state's attorney basically just dropping the charges in the dark of night. No one got notice of it. He walks free and starts talking about his innocence. This angered a lot of police officers and will probably for a long time to come.
All right, we're going to ask both of you to stand by. Phillip Turner, former federal prosecutor who worked for Dan Webb, the prosecutor in this case, Karen Conte, civil litigator and criminal defense attorney here in Chicago. Thank you. Stand by. Live pictures from the courthouse. We're going to continue watching for the defense and for Jussie Smollett, now a convicted felon guilty of faking racist and homophobic attack in 2019. It's taken this long, but justice delayed is still justice. A brewing Cuban Missile Crisis that is now threatening the two largest superpowers in the world once again to go head-to-head when we come back. Welcome back. Live pictures of an empty corridor. That is the courthouse in Chicago, Illinois, where Jussie Smollett has been convicted of 5 of 6 counts of faking a hate crime. We understand that Smollett and his defense team have to walk past the cameras. Whether or not they stop and talk, we will all see together. We're going to obviously keep our eye on that, let you keep an eye on it as well on the screen, and move on to what it was our lead story up until a couple of hours ago. Not since the Cuban Missile Crisis have we been closer to nuclear war. It's not me or our show saying that, but the Russian foreign minister who describes the growing crisis between his country and ours over a bleak landscape on the Ukrainian border as the next Cuban Missile Crisis. Which begs the question, why is Russia creating a worldwide crisis? Nearly every day, more Russian forces mass on the Ukrainian border. This is satellite images showing those troops. They are ready to cross in a blitzkrieg attack on their weaker neighbor. Here's the former Ukrainian president almost begging America for help.
We need anti-aircraft missiles. Definitely we need the radio warfare system, confidential communication system, strike drones, and many, many other things.
And now we return to the courthouse in Chicago where Jussie Smollett's attorneys are addressing his recent felony conviction.
We obviously respectfully disagree with the jury's verdict. The verdict is inconsistent. You cannot say Jussie is lying and Jussie is not lying for the same exact incidents. So we feel 100% confident that this case will be won on appeal. Unfortunately, that's not the route we wanted. But sometimes that's the route that you have to take to win, especially a case where we remain 100% confident in our client's innocence. From the first day of this case, his case has been prejudged, his case has been tried in the media, and it's unfortunate. This is the United States of America. We live in a constitutional democracy where everyone is presumed innocent. But obviously, if we're being honest, that hasn't been the case. In social media, in the media, he's been tried and convicted before his day in court. But we are confident in our appellate system, we're confident in our Illinois Supreme Court, and we're confident that at the end of the day, what's out there in the news media and in the gossip forums are not going to stand a chance in court. Mr. Smollett said he was attacked, he gave a description of his attackers. And what a lot of people don't know is a witness came to court, and I'm not going to say his name for privacy reasons, and testified to the exact same thing. This witness was a security guard that knew nothing of this case, didn't know Mr. Smollett, but recounted and corroborated his account of events. It's pretty disappointing what happened, but we remain confident that we're going to come back and he's going to be vindicated. Questions? Yes.
Jussie Smollett, he's still going to be his mother's son, but to come clean. What is your response to that?
Obviously, that's ridiculous. We remain confident, and on appeal, he's going to be cleared of all accusations and all charges. Again, I think everyone needs to focus on the fact that this is an inconsistent verdict. You cannot, everything stems from one incident. Jussie was not accused of doing 2 different things, and he was accused of doing one thing and charged multiple times for the same incident. A jury cannot come out and say guilty of lying, but not guilty of lying. It doesn't make sense. But again, we respect the judicial process. We respect the jury process. Well, we feel confident we'll be back here. There was so much doubt in this case, and doubt because he is absolutely 100% innocent. Any other question?
To be clear, you do plan to appeal the conviction?
Oh, 100%.
Nenye, for those people who say this has gone on long enough,
yes,
this has cost taxpayers too much, why keep going through this with an appeal? What do you say?
Well, obviously, easy for them to say. If you're being convicted of something that you did not do, why wouldn't you want to appeal? That's why we have appellate courts. But let's talk about that. This is a class 4 felony case. They've spent millions of dollars prosecuting this case. I'm not saying that no case should be taken seriously, but they've spent millions of dollars. We had the first black female prosecutor elected into Cook County as a state's attorney, and she was second guessed, Kim Foxx. She made an executive decision, and she decided not to prosecute this case, and she was second guessed, and someone was appointed to prosecute it. So the question has to be asked, why was so much money and resources spent re-prosecuting this case when we have thousands and thousands of people dying, hundreds of people dying in Chicago from gun violence? Why aren't resources being diverted to those situations? We have drug cases, people dying in the suburbs of drug overdose. Why aren't resources being focused on that? Why is everyone so focused on, Jussie Smollett allegedly called the police and made a false report, even though obviously we 100% stand firm, that he didn't do that. But the question has to be asked. It's not on Jussie it's not on anyone to say, Mr. Smollett, you shouldn't waste resources by pursuing this case any further. Of course he should, because that's his guilt and innocence on the line, and we believe he's innocent. But the question should be asked is, why are they spending resources focused on this type of a case? Next question.
Web work for free, so how are you aligning that they spend millions of dollars in resources?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Webb's office work pro bono.
You see, I'm not going to comment on...
But you're saying they spent millions of dollars in prosecuting, in the prosecution here, and
okay.
his officer... So I want to see...
No, that's fine. Have you seen the invoice?
What?
Have you seen any invoice?
Invoice?
Okay, so we all know, I mean, those that have been following this case, you're supposed to, there are supposed to be filings for invoices. I haven't seen one yet. I'm sure there'll be one at some point in time. But this is based on the math we've done. We've talked that we came on this case in February. We're talking to the previous attorneys and the legal team. It's obvious a case like this. Look at all of you here. It didn't cost. It's not a situation where this costs $1 to prosecute. Next question.
What has Jussie told you since the verdict was read?
Obviously, he's disappointed, but he remains confident. He's 100% confident that this will be reversed on appeal, and we remain confident. That's why we live in the #1 constitutional democracy. Regardless of what people are saying out there, people who are not lawyers, people who are not in court, people commenting and giving their ideas from 30,000, above sea level when they're not in court. At the end of the day, we believe justice will prevail. We don't believe it was done today, but we're very confident that he will be cleared and he will be found to be innocent.
Did Jussie tell you that he wants you to appeal the conviction? Did he ask you that after court today?
Obviously, I'm not going to discuss, attorney-client privilege with my client, but what I will tell you is, absolutely, we're planning on filing an appeal on this case.
Did you get a fair hearing in court?
I'm sorry?
Did you get a fair hearing in court?
I'm going to reserve my comments on that. Obviously, I plead the fifth. How about that? Next question.
Separate from the appeal, are you confident he'll get probation, no prison?
Obviously, again, this is a class 4 felony. It's right above a misdemeanor. From my historical perspective, I used to be a prosecutor in this courthouse, and I think everybody here, we're all former prosecutors. I've never seen a case like this where a person got jail time, and he shouldn't because he's innocent. Next question. Any other question?
Describe in the courtroom, we were there.
Yes.
It was really contentious at times between you guys, the judge, both sides. What was the environment like over the course of this trial? Were you confident you got it?
I'll put it to you this way. It was a very unusual proceeding. I've handled homicide type cases. I have never felt this, gone through the emotional roller coaster we went through in this here, and I think that's the most diplomatic thing I would say. But I don't for 1 second believe that justice was done today, and that's my opinion. Okay?
He should have been, because it was a minor crime, we should have investigated it so hard. I mean, it was a big deal.
All right, that is Jussie Smollett's attorney saying they are going to appeal his felony convictions. Also questioning why the case would have been brought, saying that it shouldn't have been prosecuted in the first place. Really kind of downplaying the whole event. And questioning how the jury could reach its conclusion. I want to bring back in Phillip Turner, former federal prosecutor, now defense attorney. As I was listening to that, Phillip, I had so many questions, and I figured I was just going to let you have all the answers. Go ahead.
Well, obviously, juries can decide cases, and they can find certain counts not guilty and other counts guilty. There's a lot of law on that it's not inconsistent. So that's not really going to go anywhere. I was kind of surprised at some of the comments made here, as opposed to just saying, we're disappointed in the verdict and we intend to appeal. And that's it.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of these things, I think, quite frankly, aggravate the situation.
Yeah, I know. It was like this impressive list of grievances. He was complaining that the case had been prejudged. It had been. Everyone believed Jussie Smollett until the evidence came out the other way. He was complaining that millions were spent prosecuting when they weren't, because Dan Webb worked for free, and then started getting aggravated with the media saying, have you seen invoices? Seemed to complain that Kim Foxx, the prosecutor, wasn't listened to, even though there's lots of ethical questions in terms of why she made the decisions she made. Talking about a constitutional democracy and this, that, and the other thing. Do you understand what was he trying to do for his client?
Well, I think that what he was doing was making it worse for his client. Yeah. And I'm sure Kim Foxx did not like her name being brought up again, because I think she wants to be as far away from the situation as possible.
Yeah.
But he drug her back in.
Yeah.
And he's aggravated the situation a lot. You know, there's an old saying, and that is less is more sometimes. And you just want to say, we're disappointed in the verdict and we intend to appeal. Thank you. And that's it.
Yeah. Sometimes the hardest thing to say is nothing at all. Hey, Counselor, it's always good to see you. Thank you for the time. We appreciate it. Great way to walk us through a complicated evening. 5 of 6 felony convictions for Jussie Smollett. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We'll head overseas. Not since the Cuban Missile Crisis have we been closer to nuclear war. That's the Russian foreign minister describing the growing crisis between his country and ours over a bleak landscape on the Ukrainian border. If you're experiencing a case of deja vu, thinking, didn't Leland just say this? As a matter of fact, I did. But it's important enough that we start from the beginning of this story so you understand what's happening. And we can help you understand why Russia is creating a worldwide crisis. Nearly every day, more Russian forces are massing on the Ukrainian border, ready to cross in a blitzkrieg attack on their weaker neighbor. Here's the former Ukrainian president begging for the world's help.
We need anti-aircraft missiles. Definitely we need the radio warfare system, confidential communication system, strike drones, and many, many other things.
They need an awful lot, but the help is mostly coming in the form of strong words from the United States and some phone calls. Not heavy weapons and definitely not U.S. troops. Here's President Biden explaining what he is willing to do.
But the idea the United States is going to unilaterally use force to confront Russia invading Ukraine is not in the cards right now.
Okay, have to think about how Mr. Putin hears that in the Kremlin. Back to the days in October of 1962, when the two superpowers nearly ended life on Earth as we know it. How is Soviet-tipped nuclear missiles in Cuba similar to a Russian invasion of Ukraine? Simple. Both are crises manufactured by the Kremlin to embarrass the United States and question our standing on the world stage. On Capitol Hill, there's a lot of United States senators on both sides of the aisle at times, angry at the Biden administration for doing too little, but none of them really offer better options. Kellie Meyer is in D.C. tonight following this. Kellie, good evening.
Good evening, Leland. Well, growing calls here on Capitol Hill for sanctions against Russia. Biden saying we'll impose sanctions if Russia invades. But some senators here saying, why wait? Here's Republican senators here talking with me tonight.
There are some reports that the U.S. is pressuring Ukraine to cede land to Russia as a way to deter them from invading. Is that true?
No, that's absolutely false.
And that was White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki answering questions from reporters there today regarding the president pressuring the Ukrainian government to grant some degree of self-rule to rebels now holding parts of eastern Ukraine. When she was asked about this, she flatly denied those reports. Leland?
All right, Kellie Meyer on Capitol Hill. Kellie, back to you tomorrow with a little bit more about what some of the U.S. senators are saying and how that is playing out. We appreciate it. When we come back, Robert Wilkie, former Undersecretary of Defense, for what Moscow hears when President Biden says U.S. troops aren't in the cards. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We continue the conversation with the scary news from the Russians that we might be headed towards a new Cuban Missile Crisis over Ukraine. We bring in Robert Wilkie, who served in the Office of Naval Intelligence, National Security Council, former Secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs, former Undersecretary of Defense. Why are the Russians creating this crazy crisis?
Well, they're creating it on several fronts. The Middle East, the borders of Eastern Europe, Ukraine. They felt that they have the great advantage with Mr. Biden in the office, and they're trying to first win by bluff. I would make an argument that 100,000 troops on the border really doesn't put them in an automatic winning position because the Ukrainian army has 300,000 people. But the clip that you played from the president of Ukraine is illustrative. If Biden were good at this, he would have already opened the spigots to launch a flow of weapons into Ukraine. And not only just there, but also alert NATO troops and move troops into Eastern Europe to counter the weaponization of the migrants from the Middle East that Putin has started. So Putin's playing this multi-dimensional chess game, but without the kinetic power of anti-aircraft missiles, anti-tank missiles, then everything else Biden has said is fairly weak.
It's interesting, President Biden saw this exact playbook in 2014 when he was vice president and Putin invaded part of eastern Ukraine. I was there for it. You'd think he would learn. Is this President Biden basically saying, look, if you want eastern Ukraine, take it, and I'm not going to do anything?
Well, that's his mindset. And remember, this is someone who even opposed the mission to kill Osama bin Laden. He does not appreciate the great power that his country holds. Give you an example on the sanctions side. We still control the world's reserve currency. We could cripple every Russian financial institution. We don't have to finance their debt. We could also lay waste to all of his mineral companies by cutting off financing from Western Europe as well as the United States, and really, really hurt his economy. But remember where Biden started. He started from a position of weakness because in his first week in office, he wrecked American energy independence. Biden inherited a world where oil was about $30 a barrel. It's now up to $90 a barrel. What is that doing? That is filling Putin's coffers. Yeah. It's also making it easier for him to hold Europe hostage. And don't believe Jake Sullivan. I mean, he was the architect of sending meals ready to eat and blankets to Ukraine when he says that, well, the oil's still not flowing, gas is still not flowing through that pipeline. Yeah. Well, then why did they build it? And can you imagine the new socialist chancellor of Germany cutting off fuel to his country during the middle of a European winter once that thing is operational?
I only got about 30 or 45 seconds left. Assuming that President Biden doesn't change his mindset, which seems unlikely, where is the over-under date that we're going to know whether Putin invades or not? Is it end of January when the ground is frozen? Is it the end of March when the ground starts to thaw?
Well, I think if he does it, it'll be later in the winter and early spring, and he may just want to build a land bridge from Russia proper into Crimea. He may want to just carve off a slice of eastern Ukraine. He has many options. If he goes full tilt, though, against the Ukrainian army, that's 300,000 Ukrainians against 100,000 Russians. He's going to get a bloody nose, but we can make sure that bloody nose is more profuse by making sure that the Ukrainians have what they need to fight back.
Yeah, we certainly didn't during 2014. President Trump sent them a lot more weapons, but even then, still not enough. Mr. Secretary, appreciate it. Thanks so much. Dan's next with more Jussie coverage. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.